What if I told you that this very storm you're battling, this season that feels like it's breaking you, is the very place where God is building your greatest breakthrough? You're not just surviving, you're being prepared for something so powerful, so miraculous, that it will redefine your faith and your future. God's not distant. He's in the fire with you, shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing to move mountains on your behalf. Your transformation is already in motion. And here's the promise that I want you to hold on to. God will show you the way out of this season. This is not just a hopeful statement. It's a divine truth. I know firsthand what it feels like to be stuck in a situation that seems impossible, to feel like you're trapped with no way out. But the truth is, the place where you feel trapped is often where God is preparing you for something bigger than you can imagine. You may be asking, why is this happening to me? Why does this struggle feel never-ending? Let me tell you, when it seems darkest, that's when God's light shines brightest. It's often in those moments, when you feel weakest, that God's strength becomes most powerful. When I was younger, I remember hearing a story about a man who lost everything, his family, his business, and even his home. For years, he couldn't find his footing. But what many didn't know was that he used to make boats. One day, as he sat staring at the riverbank near his makeshift shelter, God gave him a vision. He began to rebuild, not just boats, but his faith. That man went on to start a business that thrived because he trusted God in his hardest season. You see, God doesn't abandon us in our struggles. He's not distant when we're lost. Instead, He's preparing the way out. And even when you can't see it, He is working behind the scenes, preparing a path of deliverance. The Bible says in Isaiah 43:19, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." Friends, if God can make a river flow through a desert, then He can surely make a way through your challenges. Trust Him, even when the way seems invisible. But here's the catch. You must trust Him. Even when you don't understand the journey, the hardest part is often the waiting. It's letting go of the need to control everything and allowing God to take over. It's hard when we want to fix things on our own, but I'm telling you today, there is power in surrender. There is power in saying, "God, I can't see the way, but I know you are leading me." It's in the surrender that we make room for miracles. You might be in a place right now where it feels like the weight of your problems is unbearable. But just like that man who lost everything, God is already preparing your comeback. The enemy might have tried to destroy you, but God is using this season to build you up. Maybe you can't see it now, but God is weaving a greater story out of your pain. The days may feel long, and the nights even longer, but you are not alone in this. God is not distant. He is right there with you, in the middle of it all. He's the light that will guide you through this darkness, and even when it feels like nothing is happening, trust that God is at work. He never stops working on your behalf. Even when you're weary, He's building your strength, shaping your character, and preparing you for the next step of your journey. But here's something I need to remind you of. Trust in His timing. It's easy to feel like things aren't moving fast enough, but God's timing is always perfect. If you try to rush the process, you might miss the blessing. Remember, God is not just interested in taking you out of this difficult season. He wants to grow you through it. He wants you to emerge from this trial, not just as a survivor, but as someone who is stronger, wiser, and closer to Him. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed like his life was only going downhill. But in one moment, God elevated him to a position of power, not only to save Egypt, but also to save his own family from famine. Just like Joseph, your hardest season might be the stepping stone to your greatest breakthrough. God doesn't waste your pain. He uses every tear, every disappointment, and every failure to shape you for your future. But to experience that future, you have to keep going. Don't let this hard season make you give up on what God has promised you. It's not over. God is still writing your story. Hold on to hope. Don't let the challenges of today make you forget the promises of tomorrow. God is not finished with you yet. He has a future prepared for you that is full of purpose and abundance. It might seem far off right now, but trust that it's closer than you think. Keep believing, because you are on the verge of a breakthrough. Don't let go of your faith. When you feel weak, remember that God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. God doesn't expect you to walk this road alone. When life gets too heavy, when the struggles seem unending, He invites you to cast your burdens on Him. Stop carrying what you were never meant to carry. It's in the letting go that you'll find the strength to move forward. And here's the beautiful truth. God is not just interested in seeing you survive this season. He wants to see you thrive. He wants to fill you with strength you never knew you had, courage you didn't think was possible, and hope that defies the odds. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who raised the dead, who walked on water, that's the God who's holding your life in His hands right now. No matter what you're facing, no matter how impossible it seems, God will see you through. He's not just a God of yesterday's miracles. He is the God of today's breakthroughs. So, when you feel like you can't take another step, when you feel like you've reached your breaking point, that's when God's strength will carry you. Lean into His power, not your own. His strength is enough for you. Let me tell you one last thing. Your story is far from over. This season, though painful, is just one chapter in the beautiful book that God is writing for your life. And every great story has moments of hardship before the victory. Trust in the author of your story. Trust that He is making all things work together for your good. Keep pressing forward, my friends. Keep trusting in God's promises. Keep believing that He will show you the way out, and know that when you come out of this, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more blessed than ever before. God's plans for you are so much greater than what you can see right now. Hold on to His truth. Your breakthrough is coming. Let me share with you a story, one that might seem unusual, but it's deeply relatable for so many of us. There was a woman, we'll call her Maria, who had spent most of her life caring for her family, her children, her aging parents, her husband. Everyone needed her. She spent every waking moment making sure their needs were met, but somewhere along the way, she lost herself. One day, Maria collapsed. Her body was exhausted, her mind burned out, and she was rushed to the hospital. The doctors told her she was dealing with severe fatigue, anxiety, and stress. Maria felt like she had hit rock bottom. All the people she had cared for, all the things she had done. Yet here she was, completely drained, with no way out. She lay in that hospital bed asking God, why? Why have I ended up here when I've done nothing but try to help others? But it was in that moment of absolute weakness that God began to speak to her heart. He said, Maria, you've been doing everything in your own strength, but I never intended for you to carry it all. I am your strength. Let me carry you through. And that's when Maria realized something. She had been so focused on helping everyone else that she had forgotten to rely on God to help her. She surrendered in that hospital room, and God began to rebuild her, not just physically, but spiritually. You see, sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we feel like we've hit rock bottom, whether it's burnout like Maria's, financial struggles, or emotional exhaustion. We feel like there's no way out. But what if that place where we feel broken is the very place God wants to heal us and restore us? Just like Maria, maybe you've been carrying burdens that were never meant for you to carry alone. Maybe God is saying to you, let me step in. God doesn't just want to help you survive this season. He wants to bring you out stronger than ever before. Maria's story didn't end in that hospital bed after she let go and let God take control. She found a renewed purpose. She realized that God had been with her all along, waiting for her to trust Him. She began a ministry to help other caregivers, sharing how God can rebuild your life, even when you feel like you're running on empty. And now Maria speaks to thousands, reminding them of the same truth I'm sharing with you today. God is with you, even in your weakest moments. He's not just watching from a distance. He's walking beside you, ready to carry you through. So, my friends, whatever you are facing right now, know that God is not done with you. You are not alone, and you are not abandoned. Just like Maria found renewal in her darkest hour, you too can find strength in God's presence. It's in those moments, when we feel weakest, that God's power shines brightest. He doesn't just want to get you through this. He wants to bring you to a place of healing, of restoration, and of divine purpose. And here's the truth. You might not see it right now, but God is already preparing a way out of your hard season. Just like Maria had to let go and trust God in her exhaustion, you too have to release control and lean into His strength. It's easy to try to fix things on your own, but what God is asking you to do is trust that He is the one who will make the way. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God has already mapped out your future. He has a plan that leads to hope and purpose, even when you feel lost right now. Trust in that plan. You might feel like Maria did, exhausted, without a way forward. But God is telling you today, hold on, trust me. The challenge you're facing isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new. Maria's burnout became her breakthrough, and God used what seemed like a defeat to launch her into her destiny. Your hardest season may be setting the stage for your greatest victory. And let me tell you something about hope. It's powerful. Hope isn't just a passive thing. It's active. It's an anchor for your soul, something you cling to when the winds and waves of life are trying to knock you down. Hope keeps you steady when everything else feels like it's falling apart. And hope isn't based on your circumstances. It's based on God's promises. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." All things, not just the good things. God works in the messy parts, the painful parts, and the parts we don't understand. He is working for your good, even in this hard season. Don't lose sight of that. But here's what I want you to do. Don't just wait for the storm to pass. Find God's strength in the middle of the storm. It's in the storm that your faith is built. It's in the storm where you learn that God's strength is greater than anything this world can throw at you. When you feel like you've reached the end of your rope, remember that God's power is made perfect in your weakness. God doesn't expect you to fight this battle alone. He never wanted you to carry these burdens by yourself. He's waiting for you to let Him carry you, just like Maria had to let go and let God rebuild her. You too need to trust that God is strong enough to carry you through this. When you wake up tomorrow and the weight of the world feels heavy on your shoulders, ask God for His strength. When you're in the middle of that overwhelming situation, ask Him to fill you with the power to keep going. And when you feel like you're about to break, remember that God has already overcome everything you're facing. He's already won the battle, and He's holding your victory in His hands. But it's not just about asking for strength. It's about believing that God will provide it. Sometimes we get so caught up in the problems in front of us that we forget who stands behind us. We forget that the God who created the heavens and the earth is the same God who is walking beside us in this very moment. God's presence is with you right now. He's not far away, watching from a distance. He's right in the middle of your struggle, ready to fill you with the strength you need to keep going. When you feel like you can't take another step, He's there, ready to carry you the rest of the way. I want to encourage you to shift your focus. Instead of looking at the size of your problems, look at the size of your God. Remind yourself who He is. He's the creator of heaven and earth. He's the one who parts seas, moves mountains, and raises the dead. There's nothing too difficult for Him. When you focus on who God is, your problems begin to shrink. What seemed impossible suddenly seems manageable because you know that the God of the impossible is on your side. Speak His truth over your life. Declare that He is your strength, your refuge, and your fortress. Declare that with God. Nothing is impossible. Let me remind you of what Isaiah 40:31 says. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. That's what happens when you place your hope in God. He renews your strength, gives you the endurance to keep moving forward, and lifts you up to soar above your challenges. You might be tired right now. You might be at your breaking point, just like Maria was. But know this, God is not done with you. He is still working. He is still moving on your behalf. And as you lean into His strength, as you place your hope in Him, you will find that this season won't break you. It will build you. Remember, this hard season is not the end of your story. It's just a chapter, a part of the bigger picture that God is writing for your life. And in this chapter, God is teaching you something valuable. He's teaching you how to rely on Him in ways you never have before. He's showing you that His strength is more than enough to carry you through anything. So don't give up. Don't lose heart. God is with you every step of the way. Just like He was with Maria, He's giving you the strength you need to make it through. Keep pressing on, keep holding on to God's promises, and keep believing that He will show you the way out of this hard season. My friends, let this be the moment when you embrace hope, even when it seems impossible. Hold on to faith, even when the road is rough. Hope is your anchor. Faith is your guide, and with both, you will make it through this season, stronger and more blessed than you ever imagined. Remember, God's presence is with you now, and in His presence, there is fullness of joy, peace beyond understanding, and strength for every battle. You are not alone. God is walking this path with you. Keep trusting, keep believing, and know that He will make a way. Keep strong in faith.